Now, in focus, we're going to look at the world coming together to save lives in Türkiye. The world coming together to save lives in the Türkiye quake, and we are joined by Atul Karwal, who is the Director General of the NDRF. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us, and Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former senior diplomat. Mr. Karwal, let me start with you. What is the ground situation? Our forces have gone there and they are working with the people. The kind of difficulties that, what are the reports you are getting, sir?
The two teams which were dispatched, as you mentioned, one which left at 3 in the morning today, they have both landed. The first one landed at Adana Airport, which is on the western edge of the affected area, and they were deployed to an area called Gaziantep, which is badly affected, about 300 kilometers away from the airport. They are still en route. Transportation, we had anticipated could be an issue, so we carried some vehicles with us. Indian Air Force was kind enough to take that huge load and drop us there. So this first team is yet to reach the area of deployment. They should be there tonight in the next hour or two. The second team was diverted to Urfa Airport, which is about 500 kilometers east of Adana, and they have just landed. I got a call, they have landed fine. Now they'll also get deployed and be allotted an area of operation. So we are getting into the act of trying to save human lives now.
Yes.
And both the teams are ready for being utilized for that.
Mr. Karwal, it's a race against time. So, when one looks at coordination, this is a task that you do on a daily basis. How does one work it out so that, people reach as fast as possible to these places and can, start saving lives?
So the local authorities have a better perspective on which are the affected areas, where do they already have rescues in place, which force, which country sending in help of SQOs or men and materials should be deployed in which area. So they would put these jigsaw pieces of puzzle together for us and tell us that you are required here, you reach here, because they have the overall thing in mind. So we depend on them to allot us an area of work and also give us a local person who can guide us there.
And talking about our equipment, Mr. Karwal, we talk about state-of-the-art equipment now in disaster relief. There are special sensors and special equipment to cut. Saving lives can be dangerous. We saw a lot of these cranes and things. What are they called? Whatever they are. They're actually basically pulling metal and things apart, and basically can kill a lot of people in the process. So it should be done with great care, isn't it?
Yes. So the equipment that we carry, as you mentioned, is an equipment which is designed to allow us to cut into concrete, masonry, certainly even reinforced concrete. So we have equipment, number one, which detects a life based on a heartbeat or any noise which is coming from there. That is reinforced with the help of sniffer dogs, which have been trained to detect live victims under the rubble. So we triangulate, get the location, and then cut into the structure and try and save a life. Along with that, we are also carrying equipment which are basically rope rescue equipments if somebody is stuck on a high-rise building with harnesses and ropes and ascenders and descenders, etc. The third kind of equipment which has been carried is the CBRN, because in enclosed spaces, drainages, there could be gas, there could be something else which could be harmful. So that is the third set that we are carrying. So we are generally prepared for any kind of a situation which an earthquake can throw at us.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, from the diplomatic point of view, there's obviously a lot of preparatory work done so that these teams can, fulfill their tasks to the best of their abilities. Can you run us through some of that, the diplomatic work that goes on to try and see that teams reach their places as easily as possible?
Well, the Turkish government will have to take all necessary steps to make sure that it is able to provide all facilities which are needed by the team to get to its task. The team has gone all the way to help the situation, which is extremely tragic.
Yes.
Turkey needs help. And as the Turkish ambassador here in India has said, Delhi has proved to be a friend in need. And he said, a friend in need is a friend indeed. But then, this has been consistently the plank of the foreign policy of Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi. He has always underlined the principle of Vasudev Kutumbakam. And he has always extended a helping hand to countries in need. We all know that under his leadership, India emerged as the pharmacy of the world during the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
Then recently, India supported Sri Lanka's debt restructuring plan. So we find that as India is developing and modernizing, the government of India is lending a helping hand to poorer nations across the world and to nations who are in need of any kind of help.
Right.
So diplomatically speaking, this is yet another example of the policy which Prime Minister Modi's government is following.
Mr. Karwal, so our teams have been sent largely to Türkiye, but there are reports that the situation in Syria is just as bad and probably needs as much help. In the meetings, were there plans to also send teams to Syria?
We are guided by the Ministry of External Affairs, which is coordinating with both the national governments, Syria and Turkey. As I understand, Syria had requested for medicines of various kinds and surgical instruments and that kind of an equipment. So a shipload, a plane load of that equipment and medicines is headed to Damascus to assist them in that regard. So we are driven by the requirements projected to us by the concerned governments. And so we plan to send what they exactly need.
Indeed. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, then that really puts it into perspective. So it basically is a demand that comes from the Turkish side or the Syrian side, and then we mobilize our troops. It's not something that we decide on our own and say, okay, we are sending you all this stuff. How is this, you can run us through a little bit of how this is done diplomatically.
When there is a disaster of this sort, then the affected country makes an appeal for help, as Turkey did. And India has responded by making available and trying to put together all the assistance that it can provide. And then through the diplomatic channels, through the Embassy of Turkey here and through the Foreign Ministry in Ankara, the preparations are made and the necessary arrangements are made so that the assistance can actually reach the affected people. In this particular instance, the aid workers and the relief workers and the entire team which India is sending will have to be facilitated in order to enable them to perform their task. So the on-ground assistance has to be rendered by the local authorities, that is to say the Turkish authorities.
Right.
And naturally the Embassy of Turkey here and the Embassy of India in Turkey both play a pivotal role in facilitating necessary arrangements.
Mr. Karwal, so it is a race against time, and already about 36 hours have passed since the earthquake, and there have been many aftershocks which are obviously hampering the process of rescue as well. Some of them have been as high as 6 on the Richter scale. So, it's obviously going to be very difficult. But the point is, how long will the rescue efforts take, and what are the chances of finding life? For how long can life survive under these circumstances?
As you rightly indicate, the chances of finding live victims diminishes as time goes by. The rescue teams which have gone, they are carrying their own gensets, their own lighting arrangements. They are trained to work non-stop through difficult situations. They are very well equipped and trained, so we would expect our teams to work around the clock for the first day or two, certainly, and then maybe work in shifts. There have been instances where people have been recovered from an earthquake situation alive even after 8 or 9 days. So one cannot lose hope. So we keep looking for live victims for as long as it takes. And we have prepared to be completely self-sufficient. These two teams are carrying their own tentage, their own rations, so that we don't depend or don't load the local authorities at all. We can take care of ourselves. So for the next 15 days, we are set and we'll work in a non-stop fashion during that period.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, so the process of facilitation, because the units are all self-sufficient and they are able to continue to do their work, and now we are also going to be setting up a field hospital of 35 beds as well. Do you see, I mean, that just, one embassy is good enough to do this sort of facilitation at a time like this, or do personnel from the ministry also, come in from neighboring countries and facilitate and help the process?
Well, in many such instances, the diplomatic personnel and support staff from nearby embassies, from nearby countries, are sent on temporary duty to aid and assist the embassy concerned. So I won't be surprised if the government of India also requests the government of Turkey to allow some of our diplomats stationed in nearby countries to reach Turkey so that they can assist in this huge task which has to be carried out.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, you served in New York also for a long time, and probably interacted with the United Nations to a large extent. Now, one looks at these organizations as being pivotal and sort of, in creating the enterprise to try and, move things fast. But they have such a lot of bureaucracy. So, I mean, I'm trying to get past this decision-making process to see 36 hours have passed. Precious lives could have been lost. How do we speed things up?
A lot depends on, of course, the local authorities. That is to say, the Turkish authorities have to facilitate the process. India has reacted very fast. The speed with which we have been able to put together the assistance team and the manner in which we are rapidly sending these officials with all the support equipment is really remarkable. So I suppose it is all a matter of coordination. How much local assistance can be provided for enabling the assistance team from India to be able to reach the spot and discharge the necessary duties. But of course, it's a very, very difficult situation because the Turkish officials would also be overworked. But then the situation is such that it calls for everyone to put in that extra bit to be able to assist people who are in need. And of course, most people are in such dire circumstances that everybody will really have to go out of their way to make it possible to ensure that as many people survive this crisis as possible.
Director General Karwal, what does the canine squads, are they self-sufficient? I mean, to what extent do they need to be taken care of in territory which is new to them?
Yes, they are highly trained but also sensitive. So they work for a certain number of hours and then they are rested. Also, they would not be so used to the cold there. It's colder than what they are used to, so we are taking precautions with them. And they are a force multiplier for the rescuers who factor in their signals also with the technology that we have of detecting life under the rubble. And then the digging is done in a manner that we don't cause more harm, and we carefully go in and extricate the victim. So the dogs will have to be taken care of really well. Yes.
Okay. A final word from you, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. I was listening to the resident directors of the United Nations from Syria, and they have been, working for this during this 12-year war, and now they say that, the infrastructure has also collapsed, and they are looking at a situation getting out of hand. That's the question I was talking about. Why does the UN take time to react?
Well, as you said, there is the UN bureaucracy, and it takes time for it to get its act together. That's indeed unfortunate. But I hope that under these very, very difficult circumstances which Turkey and Syria find themselves in, I hope that the United Nations will act speedily and be able to assist in whatever manner is possible. Time is of the essence.
Absolutely, time is of the essence. We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal and Director General Atul Karwal. Thank you for your valuable inputs and helping us understand the rescue effort and how nations coordinate and India's readiness to put men on the ground and men, dogs, women, everyone on the ground to get to save as many lives as possible.